The stars had always been silent for the Valari Compact. For centuries, their small coalition of peaceful worlds lived quietly in the shadow of greater powers. They built trade routes, exchanged art, and studied science. They never prepared for war because they believed no one would dare destroy civilizations that offered no threat. They were wrong. The Zirath Dominion, an empire built on conquest, swept across the stars like a storm. Their fleets were massive, their weapons advanced, and their cruelty unmatched. They burned colonies, enslaved populations, and demanded tribute from every race they encountered. The Valari tried to resist, but their fleets shattered like glass before steel. The Valari Council, made up of representatives from 7 worlds, gathered in despair. One by one, their leaders admitted the truth. Without help, they would not last the year. So they sent out a message. The message was simple. To any who hear us. We beg for help. Our worlds are falling. Our children are dying. If there is anyone out there with mercy in their hearts, please help us. The message traveled across the void, bouncing from relay to relay, sometimes distorted, sometimes clear. Most civilizations ignored it. The great powers of the galaxy had their own politics, their own wars, their own fears. To aid the Valari would mean angering the Dominion, and no empire wished to risk that. Except one. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, the signal was caught. At first, scientists thought it was a stray code. But soon linguists cracked the patterns and the desperate plea became clear. The news spread quickly across Earth's networks. At first, people argued, was it real? A hoax? A mistaken translation? But when the United Earth Council gathered in Geneva, they confirmed the truth. Humanity was not alone, and someone out there needed them. Inside the council chambers, debate raged. Some leaders argued for caution. Humanity was still new to the stars. Their colonies were only decades old, their fleets not as vast as the great empires rumored in deep space. To fight an interstellar war was madness. Others argued for compassion. Humanity had once suffered under oppression in its own history. They remembered slavery, tyranny, and conquest. Could they really ignore another civilization begging for help? The final voice was that of Admiral Elias Kane, commander of Earth's fleet. His words echoed through the chamber. We do not know the Valari. We do not know the Zirath Dominion. But I know this, we hear the cry of the weak. If we turn away, we betray not only them, but the very soul of humanity. We may be young among the stars, but we will not be silent. The council voted. The decision was made. Humanity would answer the call. The Valari never expected an answer. Days passed, then weeks as their worlds burned. Then one night, as the council prepared for evacuation, a new signal came through. It was short. It was clear. We are coming. At first they thought it was a trick, a cruel game played by the Dominion. But the signal did not carry the Dominion's code. It carried a different one, a frequency none of them had ever seen before. The Valari ambassador, Elder Solari, whispered in awe, "Someone heard us." Across Earth, preparations began. Shipyards worked day and night. Warships once meant for defense were retrofitted with heavier weapons. New engines were tested, old blueprints revived. Soldiers volunteered in droves. For the first time in history, humanity was united not by fear, but by purpose. News channels across Earth carried the story. Valari Compact under siege. Humanity to intervene. Families sent off their sons and daughters, not knowing if they would return. Factories poured out supplies at record speed. Even civilians felt the weight of the mission. This was not just war. This was the first war for humanity among the stars. The Valari were cautious when the first human envoy arrived at their station. The ship was smaller than they expected, gray and sharp-edged, built not for beauty but for function. Its crew stepped out, men and women in dark uniforms, their eyes steady, their movements disciplined. To the Valari, humans seemed strange. Their bodies were heavier, their eyes sharper, their voices stronger than most species. There was something unsettling about them, as if every human carried a storm inside. Elder Solari greeted them nervously. You came, why? The Dominion is vast. They will crush you as they crushed us." Admiral Kane, standing tall among his officers, simply replied, "Because you asked." The Valari were stunned. No one had ever risked their lives for them before. No empire had ever cared. But here were humans, strangers from a distant world preparing to face the greatest power in the galaxy. Because they had asked. Back on Earth, soldiers trained harder than ever. They studied alien environments, learned to operate in toxic atmospheres, and prepared for zero-gravity combat. Humanity's engineers built new weapons, combining Earth technology with fragments of alien data captured from stray probes. The Dominion, meanwhile, laughed at the news. Humans? A young race barely stepping into the stars? They dismissed them as insects. The Valari had placed their hope in nothing but fools. But the Valari, for the first time in years, felt something they thought they had lost forever. They felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, these strange humans could turn the tide. Hope that the galaxy's whispers about Deathworlders, a species born on a planet of storms, predators and fire, might be more than rumor. Hope that when they begged for help, they had not been heard by angels, but by warriors. And as the human fleets prepared to launch, the Valari Compact gathered in silence, listening to the engines of Earth's warships roar to life. Humanity was coming, and the stars would never be the same. The day humanity's fleet arrived in Valari space was remembered for centuries. The Valari Council members, weary from endless defeats, gathered at the observation deck of their capital station. They had prepared themselves to see a handful of small ships, perhaps a token force meant to offer symbolic aid before being crushed by the Dominion. What they saw instead took their breath away. Dozens of massive ships emerged from hyperspace. Their hulls were thick, their frames sharp, built like weapons themselves. Each one bristled with guns and launch bays. Compared to the sleek curves of Dominion warships, human ships looked like floating fortresses, ugly, practical, terrifying. The lead vessel was the UES Resolute, flagship of Admiral Elias Kane. Its armored hull reflected starlight, and its engines burned bright as it took point at the head of the formation. The Valari ambassador whispered, "They came with an army." The Zerath Dominion wasted no time. When they detected humanity's fleet, their commanders sneered. They saw humans as weak upstarts daring to challenge a galactic empire. To the Dominion, this was not war. It was an execution. A Dominion fleet of 50 warships intercepted the humans near the border of Valari space. Their commander, Lord Varek, sent a mocking message. "Humans, this war does not concern you. Leave now and you may live. Stay, and you will be erased." Admiral Kane's reply was calm, almost cold. "We came because they asked for help. We will not leave. If you wish to erase us, then try." The channel closed. Silence filled the void for only a moment before the battle began. The first shots lit up the darkness. The Dominion ships fired heavy plasma cannons, streams of blue fire crossing space. Human ships did not scatter. They held formation, shields flaring as they absorbed the blows. Then the humans returned fire. Railguns thundered, launching slugs at near-light speed. Missiles streaked through the void, each one guided by swarms of drones. The Dominion expected the humans to fight cautiously, but instead they fought like predators. The Resolute cut straight through the enemy line, guns blazing. Human ships did not fear close combat. They rammed, they boarded, they destroyed with ruthless efficiency. Marines in reinforced armor stormed Dominion vessels, fighting in toxic air and zero gravity as if it were nothing. To the Valari, watching from afar, it was like witnessing legends. They had never seen such ferocity. They had never seen anyone stand against the Dominion like this and win. Within hours, half the Dominion fleet was gone. The rest broke formation, retreating into hyperspace. For the first time in centuries, Dominion ships fled a battlefield. The Valari Council erupted in stunned cheers. They could not believe it. The Dominion had been beaten. Not just resisted, but crushed. Admiral Kane, however, was not celebrating. In the command deck of the Resolute, he stood over a holographic map of enemy sectors. "Send word to Earth. Inform them the first battle is ours," he ordered. Then his voice hardened. "But this is only the beginning. They will return, and they will come with more." News spread quickly across Valari space. Stories of human soldiers ran like fire through broken colonies. Survivors whispered of men and women who walked through flames, who fought even when wounded, who turned scrap into weapons. Deathworlders, the galaxy called them now. The name was whispered with both fear and awe. Humanity, born on a world of storms, predators, and disasters, fought like no other. The Volari, once broken in spirit, began to hope again. For the first time, they believed the Dominion could be defeated, but the Dominion was not idle. Lord Veyrak returned in shame, his fleet destroyed. The Dominion Council, furious, ordered a response. They gathered 3 times the number of ships and launched a campaign to crush the humans. This time, humanity was ready. When the Dominion Armada entered Volari territory, they found not a scattered defense but a trap. Human fleets struck from hidden positions, cutting supply lines and ambushing reinforcements. Every tactic was ruthless. Where the Dominion relied on overwhelming numbers, humans relied on precision, speed, and daring. They dropped troops behind enemy lines. They sabotaged fuel depots. They destroyed communications before the enemy knew they were there. The Dominion commanders grew frustrated. They were used to enemies breaking under their might. But humanity did not break. Instead, humanity turned war into something the Dominion had never faced: total war. In one of the bloodiest battles, the Dominion unleashed a super dreadnought, a warship 10 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could reduce a city to ash in seconds. The Volari despaired, convinced nothing could stop such a monster. But Admiral Kane saw an opportunity. Target its engines, disable its shields, then get me close, he commanded. The Resolute, heavily damaged, pushed through waves of enemy fire until it was almost scraping the dreadnought's hull. Then it unleashed its entire arsenal, missiles, railguns, and boarding torpedoes all at once. Human Marines stormed the dreadnought, planting charges deep inside. Minutes later, explosions tore through its frame. The mighty warship broke apart, its remains burning in orbit. The galaxy would never forget the sight of the Dominion's greatest weapon destroyed by human hands. For the Volari, each victory was more than survival, it was redemption. Their people, once crushed by despair, now fought alongside the humans. Inspired, they rebuilt fleets, retrained soldiers, and joined in the counterattacks. But even as hope grew, so did fear. The humans did not fight like other races. Their wars were not battles of honor or politics. They fought with everything: strategy, fury, and sacrifice. To them, there was no half measure. The Volari elder, Solari, watched human soldiers march past and whispered, "They came to save us." But what have we awakened? By the end of the 2nd year of fighting, the Dominion had lost more than they had in centuries. Dozens of systems slipped from their control. Their fleets were no longer feared. Their commanders whispered of human cunning and human wrath. For the first time in history, the Zerath Dominion was on the defensive, and the galaxy watched in silence, realizing that humanity's arrival had changed everything. For centuries, they had expanded without resistance. Worlds fell, fleets surrendered, and civilizations broke beneath their iron rule. But now, stories of defeat haunted their empire. Commanders whispered about the humans, strange warriors from a distant, savage world who refused to die, who fought as if every battle was personal. And worst of all, the humans were winning. The Volari Compact, once on the edge of extinction, now thrived under humanity's protection. Volari engineers worked beside human scientists, repairing colonies and building weapons. Volari pilots joined human fleets, learning the art of daring maneuvers and relentless strikes. Where once there had been despair, now there was unity. But Admiral Elias Kane knew victory was not yet certain. Standing in the war room of the UES Resolute, he studied the holographic map of Dominion space. Red marks showed the enemy strongholds that still remained. Behind them, deep in the core, burned the largest mark of all, the Dominion's capital system. "They will not stop," Kane said quietly to his officers. "As long as their council lives, they will return. If we want peace, we must cut out the heart." The decision was made. Humanity and the Volari Compact would launch a final strike, not to defend, not to repel, but to end the Dominion once and for all. The Dominion, aware of their losses, tried to stall. They sent messages offering tribute, trade, and uneasy alliances. Other galactic empires urged humanity to accept. Peace was safer. Peace was easier, but Admiral Kane rejected every offer. "We did not come to negotiate with tyrants," he said. "We came because a cry for help reached our world. Until the Dominion is broken, we will not stop." For the Volari, his words became a vow. For the Dominion, they became a sentence. The final campaign began with silence. Human fleets spread across enemy space, cutting supply lines and destroying shipyards. Volari scouts mapped hidden routes, guiding the fleets past enemy patrols. Slowly, sector by sector, the Dominion's defenses collapsed. Then came the last march, the attack on Zerath Prime, the capital world. The Dominion gathered every ship they had left. Their fleet filled the system, thousands of warships forming a wall of steel. Orbiting the planet was their pride and their terror, the Obsidian Citadel, a fortress so vast it was said no army could breach it. The Valari Council trembled when they saw the numbers. "This is madness," one elder whispered. "No fleet has ever faced such power." But Admiral Kane's voice was steady. "No fleet has ever had us." The Battle of Zerath Prime began with fire. Human ships surged forward, shields glowing, guns roaring. Valari ships followed close, inspired by their allies' courage. The Dominion answered with everything they had, unleashing waves of plasma fire and missile storms. Space itself became a storm of explosions. Ships shattered, engines burned. The void lit up brighter than suns. The Resolute led the charge, pushing through line after line. Admiral Kane refused to retreat. He knew that hesitation meant death, and his fleet trusted him without question. Dominion commanders watched in horror as human ships broke their wall, splitting their formation into pieces. Every Dominion counterattack was met with ruthless precision. Then came the ground assault. Human Marines and Valari soldiers descended onto Zerath Prime in waves, storming fortresses and tearing through defenses. For the first time, Dominion soldiers saw fear in their leaders' eyes, and high above, the Obsidian Citadel awaited. The Citadel was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. It stretched across orbit like a city of steel, bristling with guns larger than skyscrapers. Its shields were layers thick, its armor nearly indestructible. To most it seemed impossible, but humanity did not believe in impossible. Admiral Kane ordered every ship to concentrate fire on one point. Railguns hammered, missiles detonated, lasers burned. For hours the Citadel's shields held. The Dominion commanders mocked humanity's stubbornness, and then cracks appeared. The Valari cheered as the Citadel's shield finally broke, a blinding flare marking the moment. Human warships charged, pouring fire into the wound. The fortress shook, sections breaking apart under the relentless assault. Still, it did not fall. Kane knew what had to be done. "Bring the Resolute in close," he ordered. His officers hesitated. "Admiral, if we get too close, we'll be within their main batteries." "We won't survive," Kane's voice was calm. "Then we'll die doing what we came for," the Resolute charged. Dominion fire tore into its hull, ripping sections apart, but the flagship endured, closing the distance until it was nearly scraping the Citadel's armor. "Boarding parties, go," Kane shouted. Hundreds of human and Valari soldiers stormed the fortress. They fought in dark corridors, in zero-gravity chambers, and endless halls of steel. Step by step, they carved their way to the Dominion's core chamber. At last, they reached the ruling council. The Dominion lords, once so proud, stood in shock as the doors crashed open and human Marines entered. For the first time, they were the ones who begged, but Kane gave them no mercy. "This ends today." The chamber fell. The Dominion's command was broken. When the Obsidian Citadel exploded, the galaxy itself seemed to shake. From the surface of Zerath Prime to the farthest colonies, Dominion soldiers laid down their arms. Their fleets scattered. Their empire, once feared across the stars, collapsed in days. The war was over. For the Valari, it was a miracle. Their people were free, their world safe. For humanity, it was history. Their first war beyond Earth and their first victory on a galactic scale. But more than victory, it was a warning. The galaxy now looked at humanity with new eyes, not as a young, fragile race, not as naive newcomers, but as something far more dangerous, Deathworlders, warriors who answered a cry for help with fury and fire. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the shattered remains of the Citadel drift into the void. He felt no triumph, only resolve. "We came because they asked," he said quietly, "and we will always come." Centuries later, Valari historians would write, "We begged for help. We expected mercy, perhaps pity. Instead, humanity gave us war, not to conquer us, but to save us." And though the Dominion is gone, the memory remains. The day humanity rose was the day the galaxy learned what it means to awaken Deathworlders.